Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about when a senior won't get the job. So let's get into it. I think that, well, this was a really, I kind of have to interpret this question a little bit because I had a hard time really exactly figuring out what it meant, but it basically was what merits a no hire decision for a senior developer. And I'm not sure if this means that what if a senior is hiring somebody else, does it mean that, are we asking what would that person consider to be a no hire situation for another developer, or the reverse, you're hiring a senior developer and what can a senior developer do that really immediately shows that, oh no, this person is a no hire type of person. I'm going to go with that definition because that's probably more fun or more interesting to hear about, because I mean I've made a few videos about this. Okay, what are things that a junior can do, or a mid-level, or some like a programmer can do that will lose them a job, right? But for a senior, it's not that all that different from how it works for a mid-level programmer. And this kind of becomes a recap of things that I've talked about before. But I suppose that the thing that stands out the most are two things, or these two things. The first thing is going to be that they're a bad culture fit. Like, I'm just going to get that out of the way immediately. You may have, it may not be something that you think about as something that is super important, but it is super important. A company that is hiring you, remember, there's no fairness. There's I know that there is this weird, I don't know why people got this into their heads, but nothing's fair, guys, in industry. The companies, they don't give a shit about you, and they don't give a shit about your sensation of what's right, what's wrong, what's fair, what's not fair. They care about their company, because you can think of it as a team. It's actually more similar to that. It's not a democracy or like some type of something like that. It is a team. When you're going to a company, you're trying to apply for a membership within a team, and the value system that team has is the thing that they are going to look for in you. And if you don't reflect that value system, or if you don't fit within what they perceive to be a good culture fit, or somebody who they would enjoy being a part of that team, you're not going to get the job. It doesn't matter how genius you are for the most part, unless of course their entire way of looking at things makes it possible for them to just, if you're good enough, they're just going to ignore the fact that you're not the sort of person that they would enjoy working with, because there are companies who do it that way as well. It's extremely common in the service industry or security work or things like that they need people, because like you're just for the most part you're just a resource. Like, they don't really care so much about who you are as long as you can do the job. In IT it's different very often. Some companies still have this, I suppose, but most companies in IT really care about that you're a good fit for the team, because you need to collaborate, and that is extremely important. The second thing that a senior developer can do, which is probably the worst thing you can do, and that is to have a mismatch, or at least a perceived mismatch, between the years you have and the skills that you have. And what do I mean by that? Well, I basically mean that and this I've talked about in a previous video as well, I have warned quite a lot of people about that the clock is ticking. Which means that, and by that I basically mean that you have a certain amount of time in which you are expected to progress. It's very similar to growing up, that you're the school nurse or doctors and stuff like that. They measure your height, they make sure that you have a certain weight and stuff like that, because they're measuring you against a curve, and that is the expected, or like just to make sure that everything is going the way it should go, right? And the same thing works, it's the exact same thing with your programming skill. Like, there is this unspoken level of skill that you should develop within a given time frame. If you're a super senior developer but you code like you're a junior, that's going to stand out like a lot. It doesn't matter if you're a master, well, it does matter depending on on the job you apply for. I mean, if you're applying to be a manager and you're a super senior manager, like technical manager or something like that, with the coding skills of college junior, I mean, that may not matter so much because you're going in there to be a manager of some sort. But it's very important that you have a match between these. I mean, the worst possible thing that I've seen happen with this sort of thing is that you have talked to a senior front-end developer, but all this person has ever done, all he had ever done, was to work 10 years alone in jQuery at a small ads company. He can just I can tell you right now, it's almost, I mean, he does have the years, but, and as he told me, he found it very hard to, like, very intimidating to go into the workforce and like try to find a job as a senior front-end developer, because he simply does not have the skills that is required for a senior front-end developer today. I've seen the same thing happen with a few back-end developers, like very serious embedded systems developers who are working in some extremely niched fashion. I mean, they're really good at what they do, but the only jobs that are available in their region is web work or things like that, and they simply don't have, for whatever reason, the capacity to prove themselves within that language or within that context. And that is that is probably the thing that is going to, like, it doesn't matter how good you are, because, as I said, it matters how good you are in comparison to how good you should be. And if the company feels that they can find somebody who is more skilled than you, or like has a better balance to their portfolio, or to their portfolio, let's call it that, they're going to go with somebody else. So I can promise you, you may have thought this if you're a junior, that, you know, all your problems just go away when you're a senior, and it gets better. Like, it's not as intimidating to get a job or like to prove yourself as it is when you're a junior, but the struggles to prove yourself never goes away. Your skills as a programmer is a commodity, and there's an expiration date on that commodity. So unless you keep that updated and you make sure that you check with your peers, or rather compare yourself to some type of peer, so you know roughly where you are in comparison to everybody else in the industry, it can happen that you actually get into this misalignment, and then you're going to be evaluated, and you're going to be, well, you're going to be weighed, you're going to be evaluated, and you're going to be, dismissed, basically, because you don't. You're either you're too low on the curve, on this weird imaginary curve. And the worst part about it is that there's no objective curve. There's, like, it's completely up to the company how they perceive you, and how they, like, the person, it all comes down to this gut feeling I've been telling you about in other videos. That gut feeling of the person who's doing the hiring is the thing that dictates if you get the job or not. No, nothing else really matters. And all your skills, all your social skills, soft skills, hard skills, whatever you have, all of this just comes down to you sitting down, having a really nice CV, having the skills to, like, speak for yourself and make a good impression, and then of course solving the technical questions and stuff like that. If you can do all of these things in a good fashion, it doesn't really matter who you are or what background you have, they will hire you. But if you misalign on something here, they won't hire you. So what I want you to take away from this is that most seniors that get this that don't actually get hired are the sort of people who either are eccentric, or like a problem, like they have an attitude, or they don't have an air of maturity around them. They don't fit into that culture. And as I said, getting hired to do a job at a company is pretty much the same thing as joining a team. If the team doesn't like you, it's very unlikely that they're going to hire you. They will maybe, but for the most part, no. The second thing that can warrant a no hire for a senior is if there's a misalignment with their skills. In other words, they have a lot of years, but they don't actually. It doesn't reflect in skill, and that brings into question, basically, do they actually know what the hell they're doing? Are they talented? Because this is a talent business, and if you can't communicate clearly, or basically prove that you know your stuff, you're not going to get the job. And it's 10 times worse for a senior to have this problem than it is for a junior, because a junior is kind of expected to not be like a super programmer, but an experienced senior programmer who doesn't write code that is on par with what other seniors do, that is really, really bad. Have a great day.